Hello and welcome to the Songbird Sade Knits podcast. My name is Mercedes and I'm coming to you from Guelph, Ontario, which is the traditional lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. It's October 12th today, and finally we have some autumnal weather. We've actually had a very extended summer in terms of the weather. All of September and almost right up until Thanksgiving, the weather was hot, like summer hot. And even at night, the temperature didn't dip below 15, 16 degrees Celsius. So yeah, very unusual. Usually usually we have nice warm days in September, but then there might be a frost or it'll just be quite chilly at night. But that hasn't happened until quite recently. So that is nice. I love autumn. So yeah, it's nice to have some of those crisp mornings. Today's actually a fairly warm day and very sunny, very beautiful outside today. I don't know if you can see out the windows. It's kind of a strange angle. Our house is perpetually in a state of renovation, so there's always some negotiation that I have to do to find a nice enough spot to do podcasts from. So I'm sitting near my front door right now. Yeah, so for today, you might be able to tell I've been sick for a few weeks now. Our son just started daycare, so we're getting all the viruses coming home. But I thought I would take the opportunity to get a podcast in while I'm at home. I do have a couple finished objects today. Some are knitting. I have some dyeing to show you, and a little bit of crochet and a little bit of weaving. And then I have quite a few works in progress. I find in the fall, I become like a squirrel and I just gather all of my stuff and want to cast on everything. And I get a little bit unfocused because I just want everything. So I'd been pretty good about staying focused on projects up until now, and I've just wanted to cast on a bunch of things. So this is probably unwise, but the cast-ons seem to be going well so far. So I'm hopeful that even if I set them aside, I will still have interest in them in the future. Sometimes I cast on things and then look at them months later and realize this wasn't a good idea. But I think these ones have some staying power, so you can weigh in on that once I've shown them to you later on in the episode. So yeah, let's get into it. Make yourself cozy and let's talk about the finished pieces I have for you today. So the first is this Sian sweater by Elizabeth Doherty. I'll stand up so you can kind of see where the yoke details end, and it just has a little bit, mine anyway, just has a little bit of a contrast color on the bottom. It does have short rows on the back too. And this is a slip stitch color work. So not stranded color work, it's a slip stitch technique. Another interesting detail is there are underarm gussets here. So this triangular shaped gusset, which just helps. Many sweaters don't have this, but I guess because this one, I don't know, you could probably get away without it, but it would be a little tight in there. So I'm actually really happy with that. It's not a detail you would see very often, but it does make the sweater more comfortable. So I am really happy with this one. As I was knitting this, I loved it so much. I had so much fun knitting the yoke, and I kept holding it up and looking at it and touching it because it's very textural. And I loved every minute of knitting the yoke. And the yarn is very lovely as well. So before I get into the details of the sweater, I'll just tell you the yarn. The main color is the darkest shade, natural undyed shade from Custom Woolen Mills. And this is a worsted weight, and it's their mule spun yarn. So it does have, it's quite lofty, and it's like a dark brown, and it has some gray fibers in it as well. So it has a bit of that like gray highlights, I would say. And being spun on a mule spinner, it has that sort of, I would say it's fairly regular overall. I wouldn't call it thick and thin, but it just has a dynamic quality to it, which I really like. I really like yarns like this. It's not, you know, a commercial yarn that is just the same thickness all the way along. It does have variance, and I enjoy that. I find it very interesting and pleasurable to knit with. And then I have two contrast colors here. They're both from Twin Pines Alpaca Farm. They also mill and spin their own wool, and they usually do alpaca blends, so usually there'll be bamboo, sometimes merino mixed in, and I've used their yarns before. They're very nice, very lovely. They really have lovely colors, usually sort of heathered shades, and really beautiful. So I just have a natural white here, and then this one is sort of a mauve color. And yeah, it does provide, let's see, a little bit of a halo to the yoke section. Don't know if that comes through, but yeah, it just provides a little bit of an interesting texture there. Some people might not like that when you have this dark background with light contrast. If the light contrast is sort of hairy and fuzzy, it will leave lighter fibers on your background. I don't mind that at all. It never even occurred to me that that would happen. And then I saw in someone else's podcast that they mentioned this as a problem, and I thought, no, that's not a problem for me at all. I don't mind. Yeah, so I love this sweater. I love the way it looks, and I loved knitting it. I would love to knit another one. I don't usually knit sweaters twice, but this one, I don't really have yarn for it, but in the future, if I'm in a place where I think I can buy yarn specifically for a project, not to like mix with other yarns that I have in my stash, then I would make this in a summer version. So like a wool linen blend, wool silk blend, something like that, with short sleeves. And then on the body, I did the A-line shaping, which is accounted for in the pattern. You could also do straight cropped shaping. I really like the way A-line shaping fits. It's very comfortable, and it's flattering, I think, on most body types. But I don't know what happened. After the yoke, I knit the body, I don't even know how many times. I think maybe 7 or 8 times, like knit almost the whole thing and then had to unravel, which is embarrassing and quite frustrating, and I've almost blocked it from my memory. It's just crazy how long the stockinette section took me because of really, really bad mistakes that I made, really sort of silly oversights. And also with A-line shaping, I don't know why I had such a problem, why I didn't just follow the pattern. I think I had a different stitch count, or I'd done something differently. I'm not really sure, but in my mind I thought, oh, I'll just make up my own A-line shaping. Well, that didn't work because I didn't understand quite how to do it. When I finally, after several tries, came around to following the pattern, I think the length didn't work with my body type, so sort of the the space between the decreases and increases, because this is I personally don't think this is A-line, it's more of an hourglass because it actually tapers in and then goes out. In my mind, A-line just goes out like that. Anyway, the spacing didn't work, so I had to adjust it to fit my body. And this is something I'm finding with putting A-line shaping into other garments that I'm making, is it does not work for me to follow the pattern. I have a very long torso, and it could also be because I don't do gauge swatches. Everything else tends to work out really well, but then you start doing that sort of finer shaping in the waist, and if it doesn't hit the right spot, it looks really bad. So it's just something that I have to give a little more attention to. It's not just, oh yay, I'm at the stockinette section, I can just knit. I have to continually hold it up to my body and see where it's hitting. So anyway, I figured it out finally for this, and I'm happy that I did, because it's really cozy with that sort of waist hugging and hip giving fabric. It's very comfortable to wear. So that's my Sian sweater. Next, for finished objects, I finally finished my son's Alsace souvenir sweater. He's worn it already a few times. It's actually way too big on him. So it's a bit wrinkly because I roll up the sleeves on him. It kind of fits like a tunic, so he can grow into it. This is the Friday mini sweater by Petite Knit. So it has a broken rib all over pattern with raglan increases at the yoke, and it's just striped color work. And yeah, it's really cute on him. I really like it. It's very cute. These are the colors of Alsace. Red, white, and black are the colors of Alsace. So I went with red and white. I bought the yarn when we were in Strasbourg on our month-long trip there as a family. And actually I ran out of yarn, the white, when I was trying to finish one of the sleeves. And I just bought a skein of Sandnes Garn Sunday, which is I think it's a superwash merino, which is what this yarn is as well. And I bought it in the natural white colorway, and it's actually just a little bit thinner than the main yarn that I've used, but it worked out just fine. You really can't notice. Even I struggle to find which of the sleeves I finished with this yarn. So that was actually very lucky to be able to find a match for that. And yeah, the only other thing I'll say about this is with this red and the white, when I went to block it, the red definitely bled color. And I just tried to, instead of letting it soak for a while, I just tried to give it quick rinses, so that that color that bled out didn't sit on the white wool for long. And I probably could have done it a few more times, because in the drying process, when it was hanging to dry, the color continued to leak out of the red, and around the red stripes, there's a little bit of pink, like a pink wash just next to the stripes. It's pretty difficult to see. It's kind of just like this perception. When you look at it, you kind of get this perception that the lines aren't super crisp. So I'm not disappointed. I think that it's fine. I could have washed the yarn before I used it, but that can really change the gauge. It probably wouldn't with a superwash yarn, but anyway, I didn't do that. So there it is. Someone's knocking at the door. One moment. Sorry about that interruption. So anyway, that's the Friday sweater. I think that's all I need to say about that. It took forever to knit for a child's knit, by the way, in case you're considering it, because it's knit and fingering weight yarn. It takes a long time. So it's a bit of a downside for something you want for a child, and then they're not going to wear it, you know, for too long. However, I think that fingering weight is nice for children because it's not a big bulky sweater and it makes movement a little bit easier for them. So yeah, 2 considerations. Okay, another finished object. Now we're moving into non-knitting related, not related, just non-knitting finished objects. I had shown a picture of my dye pot last time. I was using onion skins and just a little bit of marigold with alum as the mordant, and I dyed several things. But I just wanted to show you the wool that I dyed because it's really beautiful and I'm excited by this color, and I think it turned out really well, very even. So this wool is from Revolution Wool Company. It's a DK, heavy DK wool, just local to me. And it was just natural white. And now it is this beautiful, what would you call that? It's almost like this pumpkin. Similar, it's more yellow. It's, yeah, just a really nice golden yellow color, which I'm just so pleased with. Really, really pleased with. We've been doing a lot of natural dyeing lately. My partner got into it recently, and we've dyed quite a few pieces of fabric. We've done Solidago, which produces a gorgeous, vibrant yellow, and we've done buckthorn, which was kind of strange. I don't think we had enough dye stuff in the pot, but the color, so I was expecting a little more of a purple color, but the color ended up being kind of a greenish purple, kind of a strange color. But I'd try it again just with more berries. And then we also did a pot of geraniums, and that produced kind of similar to this, but more subtle. Out of those experiments, I would say the Solidago produced the nicest color, but we only dyed cotton. We did not dye any yarn, and I find the wool yarn dyes much better than fabrics, because because they're flat, they really, really show any imperfections in your dye pot. So if you have any, you know, excess oils on the top, the fabric will pick that up and it'll really mottle the end result. If you have any fiber left, like not this kind of fiber, but plant fiber left in the pot, and it touches the fabric, it will leave like a darker stain or impressions of that fiber. So, and then also just generally uneven color. It shows up a lot more if you have a flat piece of fabric. You can basically read the dye pot on your fabric. Whereas with the yarn, the skeins, it really kind of just evens itself out over the course of the skein. And then when you knit with it, you barely perceive any of the imperfections. They're just more lovely, subtle variegations. So I really like dyeing yarn. That's my preference. So I think next time we do a dye pot, particularly with the Solidago, I'd love to try some yarn. And yeah, I will, when we do that, I'll let you know. And final finished object for today is a little piece of weaving, a mini piece of weaving. I got this, I really want to learn how to weave. And weaving is an interesting craft because the product depends entirely on the tool that you're using, because there are so many different types of looms. I guess the technique and the functionality of the tools is similar across, but the actual tool itself varies greatly. So I have a very small loom here that I want to show you. This is my first loom, and I'd love to expand my collection of looms so I can try different types of weaving. But this is just a little, not even sure what kind of loom you would call it. Maybe it's similar to a tablet loom, but it's small. I don't know. And it comes with this. I don't know what you call this. This goes underneath your warp threads to create space so you can get your weft in. And to do the weft part of the weaving, this kit came with a darning needle. And so you thread your needle, and you have your warp threads going around these little keys here, going this way, and then you would do the weft with your darning needle and thread. And this is just a little kit from a company that's here in Guelph called Chip and Sparrow. And I think she just has a variety of small looms available. And my partner got this for me as a gift because he knows that I want to try weaving, and he knows that I generally always want to explore different handcrafts. So I made my very first little woven piece. So this is kind of like coaster size, I would say. And that's the back. I don't know if I'm supposed to weave these in or leave them or cut them. I'm not really sure. This piece, I'm doing a course where a course of study for becoming a Waldorf teacher. And I'm studying anthroposophy. And in my course, I've been encouraged to recall events of my life in certain chunks of time. So starting with age from birth to age 7, really age 3 or so to age 7, and pick out memories that stand out to me, and then work with 1 or 2 of those memories and create some sort of art piece that explores that and represents that memory. This is my first attempt at that. I thought I would, my criteria for doing this is I want to make pieces that are beautiful, because even negative memories can be transformed into beauty in some way. And I also wanted to make pieces that are either functional or can be used in my home, you know, decoratively or whatever, because that's important to me, I guess. And because symbolically, I also think it makes sense to take these memories and these experiences and our emotions associated with them and transform them into things that we can live with on a daily basis. So that's what I'm attempting to do. So I made this little, I guess I could use this as a coaster. I am actually using it as a coaster in my bedroom for this little meditation box thing that I have. Yeah, so this is representative of a childhood memory. I'll just share briefly. It's just when I had to change schools after grade 2. A new school was built, and I was in the catchment area for it, and I just had to go there. I guess I could have continued at the old school, but there would not have been a bus, so my parents would have had to drive me, which I guess was not an option. So I had to go to this new school, and I didn't have any friends there, and I had to leave my best friend behind. So that was, I remember that being quite a perplexing moment in my life. Just why did I have to do that? And I don't recall any attempts from my parents or my friends' parents to keep our friendship going it was probably just too difficult because it was one of those childhood friendships that's just is. It just flourishes on its own. And when the circumstances are not supportive of that, it isn't anymore. So that's what this represents to me. This yarn here, I actually spun on my own with a drop spindle. And this is an alpaca, a lovely alpaca blend, again from Twin Pines Alpaca. And it has two colors, just a plain natural white and then this sort of rose color. And yeah, that's my first attempt at spinning. I enjoy it, but I don't know what I'm doing. I really don't know what I'm doing. Lots of thick and thin. But then the main question I had when spinning was, how do you get, when your spindle starts filling up and you need to take that yarn off, but you want to keep spinning? What do? Do you just break it and put it onto, what's that called? Not a cartridge, a bobbin? Do you just put it onto a bobbin and then start a new thread of yarn? I don't know what to do there. And I guess I got to that point in the spinning, my spindle got full and then I stopped spinning. So I could pick it up again once I figure out what to do with the yarn that's still on my spindle, I guess. And then this is a really stunning yarn. That is from Fleece and Harmony, and it's their colorway called Fox and Kits. So it's a rusty orange, and I've used that in a shawl, and it's so beautiful. It's highly variegated, so I don't know how you would make a sweater outfit. Obviously, it alternates skeins, but it could be a little bit challenging to do so. But the quality of the wool is beautiful. It's just so lofty and it has a little bit of silkiness to it. It's really nice. So that's my last finished object, my little woven piece. Okay. No, I have one more finished thing, very small, another perhaps even smaller. It took less time than the weaving piece. I just did one granny square to cover up the brand patch on my bag, because where I work, the children are encouraged, well, there's a dress code, so it's not just encouraged, they're not allowed to have brand symbols on their clothing or gear that's bigger than their palm. This was smaller than my palm, but I just feel that to have it displayed didn't match with the intent of the dress code, and it's much more harmonious and in keeping with the spirit of why the dress code exists to not have any brand symbols showing at all, if possible. So I thought it would be nice to put a patch on my bag. I could have done this in so many ways. I could have done a woven piece, I could have done a quilt block, but all of those other options, I could have done a knitting swatch, but I wanted something quick. So crochet is quick, and I know how to crochet simple things, and it uses up little bits of yarn, so that's what I did. I had fun doing that. I actually would like to crochet a little bit more. Maybe there's this awesome tutorial by Bethany Lynn Makes. I can never get her name right. Something like that. And she has made a granny square vest, and I'd love to make that. I actually don't like crochet for blankets, just all the holes. It's frustrating when you use it as a blanket because it's warm and cold. You get this cold air coming through the holes. And it also takes up a lot of yarn, more than knitting. So I don't like crochet for that kind of thing. but I think the vest would be really cool, and it would be less squares than a blanket. So if I do any crochet projects in the future, that would likely be one that I would pick up. Okay, let's get into works in progress. There are quite a few, I think, and let's start with the most exciting one, or at least the one that visually has the most to reveal at this moment. So since last time, I don't think I had cast this on. I just had that Squirrel Energy, and I was really into colorwork yokes, and I actually almost cast on a bunch of, or like 2 or 3, but I started with one, and I luckily was really interested in it. So I finished the yoke and was really progressing through the body, made it all the way to the end of the body, and then the A-line shaping revealed itself to be a problem once again. So this is the Porty Cardigan by Gudrun Johnston. So you can see the steek there in the middle, where the pattern breaks. That's where I'm going to cut it for the cardigan. And I'm just going to show you the colors again. I kind of matched her colors in the sense that I just swapped out for colors that I had and colors that were a little bit more muted. Her version uses yellow, orange, gray, and blue, but they're much more vibrant versions of what I have in mine. Mine are a little more autumnal, I would say. And it's gorgeous. I love the color work. It's really interesting. I don't have anything like this in my wardrobe. I realize I've done lots of color work, but I've tended to do big patterns, or, you know, big patterns in the sense of a lopy sweater, a lopa pesa, where there are multiple colors, but the motifs are large. Or I've done quite a few sweaters that have just one color in the yoke. I haven't done much of this Fair Isle motif work, and I like it. It's beautiful. It was really fun to knit and just exciting to see how the pattern came together. So yeah, I'm really into this. Can't wait to wear it. That'll probably be a while. So I went and did the body. It's kind of semi-cropped, which I think would be nice. Then I can wear it with skirts and dresses. I think it'll look better being cropped. And yeah, I got all the way to the bottom of the body, but I don't know if you can tell, there's a bit of shaping here. There's some increases that start, I think right about here they start, and they're gentle increases on someone with a shorter torso, and I followed the pattern for these increases, so in terms of where to start them and how much distance to have between them. For someone with a shorter torso, this would fit probably fairly well. The problem is when I put it on, the increases start at my bust, kind of almost at my underarm. And for A-line shaping, it really should start right below your bust, kind of where your rib cage, if your rib cage, you know, imagine your rib cage is a triangle like this, the A-line shaping should start there at the bottom of your sternum. Yeah, anyway, right there, right here where your diaphragm is. That's kind of where the A-line shaping should begin, I think. Anyway, what I know is this version of the A-line shaping is not correct for me. So once again, I have to unfortunately rip back the whole lower body section to almost right at the split for the arms and do it again. But what I'm going to do with this is, because that's just so frustrating for me to deal with, especially after having done it with this one so recently, I'm gonna knit the sleeves first, And there's a little bit of color work in the sleeves, again, towards the cuff, which is really lovely. So it'll be a nice thing to look forward to. And then once the sleeves are done, it'll feel like the sweater's almost done. And then it'll just feel like, oh, I just have to do the body and then I can steek it and it's done. So that's what I'm gonna do with this. And I haven't decided, should I just do straight on the body or should I try to do A-line shaping again, but matching it to where it works on my body? I really haven't decided. I'm leaning towards just doing it straight because it's a cardigan, and of course I could do the buttons however I want, but in the sample, in the pattern, I think she has 2 or 3 buttons just at the top, just here, and then it's just open at the bottom. And I like the way that looks. I think it's also a little more versatile for wearing with dresses and skirts. So I'm gonna do it like that as well. I'm not going to have buttons all the way down, so it's not going to ever cinch at my waist. Therefore, I think if it's knitted straight, it'll still flare open a little bit. If I add increases in an A-line style, it'll flare even more when it's hanging. And if I don't get those increases quite right, I think it just might not work very well. It looks great in the pattern photo. I'd love to be able to replicate it the way she has it, but I'm worried about not getting it right. And I don't want to have to do it again. I think if I knit it straight, I might not be able to go wrong. So let me know what you think if you have experience with A-line shaping. Yeah, let me know. So that's the Porty cardigan. That's the back. Let's look at the inside though, just because it's also, the colors are so beautiful together. The colors are just, they just meld together. It's like a field in mid-October, early October maybe, just with all the flowers at different stages, some blooming, some dying, just gorgeous. Oh, and I'm using, mostly the main body is Rauma Finull, and then in the yoke I'm using some Jamieson and Smith Shetland yarn. I'm using, the gray color is Briggs & Little Sport Weight, and which is a single ply. And then this gorgeous gold color is a sock yarn that I dyed. That was in the dye pot with the onion skins and marigold. And it was gray, so I over dyed it with that plant dye, and it turned really, really gorgeous gold, like a caramel gold. And you can see it's quite a bit darker than this one. So I'm excited to use that in this project. Next, you're gonna get so tired of seeing this sweater. I'm tired of seeing this sweater, but I'm just hoping it's gonna be nice to wear when it's done. This is the Muckle Row by Marie Wallin. Still knitting it. Still knitting a sleeve. Last time I had a little bit of a sleeve and I showed it to you, you might think that I have regressed since then, and in a sense I have. I almost finished knitting that sleeve. I was knitting the sleeves as per the pattern, bottom up with color work on the cuff part. So I was maybe somewhere here and I had to go back and fix some color work. So I did that and kept knitting. And at some point I just thought, there are several problems with this sleeve. Number one, I fixed the color work because I had made a mistake. I fixed that, but I did not hold the yarns properly. So in terms of yarn dominance for the color work, what I'd done, so for example, down here, the gray is the background and the white is the foreground color. So I held the white in my left hand and the gray in my right hand, and I knit throwing style, so English style. Then here it appears to switch. The white becomes the background, which it does, and then the gray is the foreground color, the motif color. So what I did was I switched. I held the gray in my left hand and the white in my right hand. But I think because these motifs are created with just single stitches making the pattern in this section, the white didn't stand out against the gray. And so this looks really muddled. It's pretty hard to tell what the pattern is supposed to look like. On the actual body of the sweater, I did it much better. You can see how crisp that is. And that's because I didn't change the background color, or I didn't change which color I was holding dominant here. I was holding the white dominant here, and I continued to do so here, anticipating that if I changed it, it would become muddied. So I didn't remember that I did that with my sleeve. I didn't bother to check. I just made an assumption and continued, and I don't like the result. So that's one mistake. One other problem with the sleeve is that to match the armhole, which is based on the Weekender light sweater by Andrea Mowry, so not in this pattern because I changed the whole top, the whole upper body of the pattern is completely different from the Muckle Row pattern. To match the armhole, I needed 90 stitches. Well, I already had 90 stitches right here. So after the increases in this part, I was at my maximum right here. So I then just would be knitting a straight sleeve. And I thought with this tapering right here and being kind of tight in this gauntlet section, the sleeve is going to look really strange. It's going to look poofy and then tight, as if, but not poofy in like a poof sleeve kind of way, but as if I'd put gauntlets over top of my shirt, if that makes any sense. Just not in a good way. I thought it would be weird, and I wouldn't know until I finished the sleeve whether or not that's true. But that's a big risk, because also I'm knitting this on 2.75 millimeter needles. So this takes a lot of time to knit. So that's one other problem. So that's two problems. Third problem, it's not really a problem. If these other things didn't exist and it was just looking gorgeous, this wouldn't be a problem for me. But there is of course a seam in the color work because of the jog that you get when you're knitting in the round, but also there are increases that happen right here along this seam. And I mean, it's not a big deal. This happens in color work, it just is. But it's also not the most attractive. And I just feel with all these things combined, the sleeve is going to drive me crazy. It's not going to be a nice sleeve. So instead of unraveling, I thought I'd show this to you to show you I'd made progress, but there are problems. I'm not going to continue with this sleeve. Oh, the other problem, number 4, would be that I'm doing a dropped shoulder construction here. So if I was doing a bottom-up sleeve, I would have to sew the sleeves at the top, which is fine, but it does create a bit of bulk. And in a drop shoulder construction, I find any extra bulk in that seam area is just so frustrating. I really don't like drop shoulder construction. I just don't find it very comfortable. And sometimes it's unflattering because you get this bulking fabric right here in the armpit. So any way you can take out extra bulk is good. And I was worried that that would be an issue. Again, I wouldn't know until I try it, but excuse me. So there just wasn't much going in favor for this sleeve. So I abandoned it. And instead I just picked up stitches at the armhole, picked up 92 or 91 stitches. Looks great at the seam, in my opinion. It was so easy to pick up the stitches. What did I do? I think, oh great, I should have written this down because I don't know. I think I picked up 2, skipped 1, picked up 2, skipped 1. I think that's what I did. I had to try it a couple times to get the ratio right, so that it didn't end up with too many, because I wanted, 45-ish on one side, 45-ish on the other side. Anyway, so yeah, 2, skip 1 for my future self. And yeah, I'm really happy with the way that seam looks. And I'm just knitting down the sleeve, doing decreases every 1.5 inches or so. And then I'll change that along the way if I feel I need to. And then on the cuffs, I'm not going to do any color work, just not going to do it at all. I'm just going to do ribbing. I think this is just normal ribbing. Yeah, I think it's just normal ribbing, 1 by 1. I'm just gonna do 1 by 1 ribbing on the cuff, and that's it. And I hope it's going to look good. The color work, again, I've said this many times, the color work is gorgeous. The pattern is beautiful. I really like the pattern for the color work. The fit of the sweater is like a bag. It's just not flattering as per the written pattern. And even the way I've done it with the drop shoulder, it's still not very flattering. So yeah, it's kind of sad, but I'm hoping that it'll still be lovely when I'm done. I tried it on with the once I picked up the sleeve, I tried it on and it doesn't look great. The drop shoulder comes out far on my arm, and then when I put my arm like this, there is a lot of gathering of fabric. However, I have encountered this with all drop shoulder pullovers that I've made. While I'm knitting it and trying it on, it really doesn't look very promising. But after blocking, they seem to look better. So I'm hoping that that will be the case with this one. And if not, it will still look sort of nice and it will be functional, and overall there'll be less problems. The sleeve itself will be fine, the body will be mostly fine, the neckline will be mostly fine. It'll just be this area that's not great. So yeah, not very nice to have a sweater where you feel that so many problems had to be avoided and you still ended up with several issues with the fit, but I'm still hoping that after blocking it'll be okay. So that's that. Whoops. Okay. I think I only have 3 more works in progress to show you. These I just cast on recently. I was knitting a lot of fingering weight yarn, sport weight yarn, small needles. I just needed a different feeling. So, and I was wanting to do something that didn't feel just for me, even though it's perfectly fine to knit for oneself. You are the one who will appreciate it most. I do enjoy knitting for my son, my mom, my sister, and I also really enjoy knitting for my partner. He tends to wear things like he'll, once I knit him a sweater, he'll wear that sweater every day for the season. And he doesn't need much clothing, but he really likes his few pieces that are good quality. And whenever I knit him something, he just wears it every single day. So that's wonderful. So I bought this yarn a while ago for him, intending to make an Aran sweater using a pattern from the Aran sweater market. And I did make that sweater with a different yarn, Briggs and Little. The sweater was too small for him, but it fit me perfectly. So that's my sweater now, and I love it. So I bought yarn from Topsy Farms for him, intending to make another one of these sweaters. I bought it in this medium gray color, which suits him. He looks good in cooler colors. But it's knit in pieces, and it's all over cables. I thought I just kind of wanted something a little bit more modern for him. And I can always go back to that later, but I wasn't feeling it right now. So instead, I cast on for the Carver, I think it's Carver Classic by Julie Hoover. Oh, geez. I don't know if it's by Julie Hoover. It's in Brooklyn Tweed anyway. Brooklyn Tweed published this pattern, and I'm pretty sure it's called Carver Classic. It's a all over moss or seed stitch and then cables, but it's quite a bit more modern than a traditional Aran sweater. Instead of these panels of vertical cables, it has, I think, like a diamond, all over diamond pattern with seed stitch in the middle. And then the sleeves are just all seed stitch, if I'm remembering correctly. So I cast on for that, just something really nice and textural. And this is on, I think, 5 or 5.5 millimeter needles. Probably 5 millimeter. So this is a very rustic yarn, but I don't find it itchy. It's not hairy. It's very similar to Briggs and Little. It's a little bit denser than Briggs and Little. And it has a lot of lanolin, like you can feel it on your hands when you're knitting, which I really like. It smells good. It smells sheepy, and it just smells really nice. And it's undyed, just a natural gray. So this is just one of the sleeves that I've cast on for. And yeah, I think it'll be a lovely sweater for him. And I'm really enjoying knitting on this as an antidote to my finer knitting projects. Okay, and then I guess because I didn't have enough going on, or I think part of it is that I have all these yarns in my stash, quite a few. And some of them are problem yarns, or they've been around for a long time, and I really want to get to them. You know, I have some newer yarns that I've bought recently that I would like to get to as well, but sometimes the problem yarns, they really stick in my head, I think because they pose a creative challenge to find out what to do with them. So I cast on 2 projects. The first, I already had this pattern and didn't think I had yarn for it, but realized I could double up the strands and get approximately the right gauge. So this is the Anchors sweater that I've cast on for by Petite Knit, and this will be for my son. I can't remember what size I'm doing. It's somewhere in the middle. It would be too big for him now, but it's not the biggest size. And I'm using up, I have quite a few little skeins of this. Hello again. I have quite a few skeins of this yarn. It's kind of a heathered light gray with a minty green. And I got it at a thrift store and it didn't have any labels on it. I thought it was a Shetland yarn. No, it's not a Shetland yarn. It is toothy, and I don't think it's superwash, but in what do you call that? Synthetic light? I don't know if that's what you'd call it. But in the basement where I keep my yarns right now, when I've gone down there to look at it with the overhead lights on in the basement, it has a sheen to it, which I think is from nylon. And I realized when I was knitting with it a little bit, it had that feeling that you get when knitting with nylon. So I think it's a sock yarn. I don't know what brand, but definitely not Shetland. But I don't think it's superwash. So there's some nylon in it. And I don't know what to do with this yarn. I'm not much of a sock knitter. I like knitting socks occasionally, but they're really not a go-to for me. And I have so much of this. So I thought I could double up the strands. I would say it's a sport weight. So anyway, I doubled up the strands. Might be a bit thicker than a DK or what's called for in the pattern. Doesn't really matter. It's for my son. His body's gonna be changing through the course of the time that this sweater fits, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so I started the anchor sweater. It's really fun to knit, pretty simple, and I'm enjoying that, liking how that's coming along. So that uses up some problematic yarn in my stash. And then I love Ailbíona McLochlainn. I love Ailbíona. She's an Irish designer. I love her knitwear designs. I love the photographs that she takes with her for her knitting and the storytelling that goes with it. It just immerses you in this world where her knitting, where whatever the sweater is, has a life, and I love it. I love it. And they're often kind of they're taken in the Irish, landscape. So kind of overcast, kind of moody sometimes, very lovely. And anyway, I've always wanted to try some of her designs. And one of those designs is the Lastlong Pullover, which is an all-over fisherman's rib sweater. And I wanted to knit this for my partner, but I'm not quite ready to do that yet for him. But I thought I could buy the pattern, and I have yarn that I could use for myself because I would like the sweater too. I love it so much. I love the design. And so I took a risk, and I'm once again turning to this highly problematic yarn that I've had for a while from Custom Woollen Mills. It's their single ply mule spun natural yarn. This is a medium gray. If you've watched previous episodes, you might recall that I knit almost an entire Woodford's cardigan out of this yarn before really truly being honest with myself and recognizing that the yarn was creating a very skewed fabric because it's a single ply and it has a really high twist, very uneven, unbalanced yarn. So I had to unpick that whole project. I've since knit several things with this yarn, trying different techniques, different stitches like knit and purls. I've tried brioche with a different color. I've tried mixing this with mohair, all of which have resulted in skewed fabric. I reached out to the company and said, does anyone have tips for how to deal with this? I've read some things where people have suggested you can wash the yarn first. It helps to relax the twist, but then some other people said, don't do that. It actually sets the twist. I thought maybe the company would have some suggestions. They didn't. They said many people knit with it successfully without any skewed fabric resulting. I just don't believe that that's possible. I bought 5 skeins and I've used almost all of them in various different things. They've all resulted in the same thing. And I looked on Ravelry. Some of the projects did look okay, but some of them look skewed, and it's possible that the knitter just didn't know that that had happened. Anyway, the wool itself is gorgeous, as is this from Custom Woolen Mills. It's very beautiful. So I really want to make use of this yarn. So what I did was I did wash a skein to see if that would help. I don't know if it helped. The yarn still has some twist to it, although I have to admit it isn't twisting in. Yeah, it is twisting in over itself when you take away all the tension. So anyway, I'm taking a risk. I'm pairing it with Rauma Finull, which is a 2-ply. Can you see that color? In this mossy green, gorgeous. This is a luminous green. It's so beautiful. It reminds me of Iceland. The lichen, I don't know if it's lichen or if it is moss, that grows on the rocks in the lava field areas. Just like this vibrant green. So that's the color. I have one of these skeins. I bought it for some color work project that I decided not to do, and I like it, so I thought I would mix it with this gray to kind of tone it down a little bit. And if I liked the fabric, then I can always get more of this. And I love the fabric that it's created. Love it. It's created a kind of marled, but they almost meld together, this green and gray. Sorry, it's really hard to show that. That's pretty good. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying this fabric that it's creating. And I think even after washing it, when the piece is done, this gray, I know it blooms a lot. Like, it's really thin like this, it'll bloom, like 2 or 3 times the size of that. So I think when it blooms mixed with the Rauma Finull, it'll be really, really nice and even more of a cohesive fabric. And it's hard to tell because this is a small piece. It does not seem to be skewed yet. It gets worse over time. You know, it's like I don't know what you call that, a trajectory. I'm not really sure what you call that. I'm not a math person, but whatever that is, where it just gets more extreme as you continue knitting. So I can't tell yet if it's skewed, but it seems to be better than some of my other experiments so far. It seems to be better, and that might just be because I'm using it single-stranded with a 2-ply. So the 2-ply still, I think, has some openness to it, in the sense that because there's not a 3rd ply to sort of fill in some of those gaps in the twist, there's some spaces for something else for it to grab onto. And so this is my theory anyway. They might be happy together, these strands. And yeah, so I'm just hoping for the best with that one. I tried this on. It's gonna have a funnel neck, which I guess is like a turtleneck, and you can, once it's not quite long enough yet, but then you'd wear it tucked in like that. And I was kind of thinking that wouldn't look good on me, but then I tried it on last night, and I was going for a mock neck, which is a bit shorter, and I realized it would look really nice to have this turtleneck as per the pattern. So like I thought because this fabric is stiff it wouldn't look good, but it was looking lovely. So I'm continuing knitting this ribbing section, fisherman's rib section, a little bit longer, to create the funnel neck that's pictured in the sample photos. And then after that I can get to the shaping for the shoulders, and I'm so far just really happy with that. I think I'm really hoping it's going to work out because this green and gray combo is so, it speaks to me. I love green, and yeah, I'm loving it. So I think that's all I have to share with you today. Oh, one more thing. Not knitting related, not even related at all, but it is handwork, handcraft. That is that I'm making a pair of winter moccasins. So this company called Lure of the North, they have moccasin kits, and you can buy them and, you know, customize it to what you want. And then it comes with a pattern, but they also recently are just doing a workshop, a free workshop for these moccasins. It'll end soon, so you won't have time to join that if you were interested. But if you buy the kit, it comes with the pattern anyway. The workshops are really helpful though. The workshop is what got me started on it because I'd been a little bit intimidated to start it on my own. Anyway, it doesn't look great. Let's be honest. This is my first moccasin. So I still have quite a bit to do. The heel, obviously, part I have to do, and then the uppers for this moccasin are made. I chose canvas uppers. Excuse me. So that's a bit harder than if you were doing hide uppers, and I'll have to use a sewing machine, I think. I was doing really well following along with the workshops, and then my family got sick, and we've just been sick for weeks, so I've missed, I think, two or three workshops. I'll probably have to do the rest on my own following the pattern. I hope I can manage, but it was so much fun to follow along. I really didn't do a great job here, but the workshop host's advice was don't rip back, just keep going, keep going, keep going. It is leather, so it will stretch with wear and, you know, form to my foot as I wear it. So it has some give and there. And then I still have the other one to do, so hopefully the other one will be a little bit better. And yeah, it's really, really fun to do this and really interesting. And I chose a really thick hide, which was not recommended for beginners, but I did it anyway. But I can see with a thinner hide, you know, if you were making a pair of summertime moccasins or moccasins to wear inside your home, that would be a lot easier to sew. And I'm really inspired to try that once I finish these, to try making moccasins for summertime. I also have a pattern that I bought ages ago called the Osberg shoe or boot, and it's based on a Viking, I believe it's based on a Viking shoe that was found, and it's just a leather shoe. And I feel inspired to try that as well because I have this wonderful pattern, and now I kind of know with slightly thinner hide it would be a lot easier and definitely manageable as a complete novice hand sewist of leather products. So yeah, that's been fun. Looking forward to finishing them and sharing with you once I get there. Okay, that is truly it for today. Thank you for watching. Thanks for all your comments on the last video as well. Thanks for welcoming me back after a long time, a long hiatus due to baby. And yeah, there will probably still be lots of time between the videos. That's just the way it is, but it's nice to have a place to do this and to know that you enjoy the videos and that you're there knitting and crafting along with me whenever I am able to sit down. So thanks again, and yeah, if you have any comments or if you'd like to share one craft that you're working on that is not knitting right now, that would be lovely. Maybe provide us with some inspiration to try something a little bit different. That would be fantastic if you could share that in the comments. And of course you can like the video if you like it, and if you subscribe, then you will know when I randomly appear here again with another video. So thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day and wonderful fall time season, or springtime season. Yeah, until next time, bye.